Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Tyranny with me, Bring It On. Let's talk to Telesofia. A broad-shouldered woman in disfavored raiment dangles against the nearby column, suspended by her wrists. Though still garbed in the iron breastplate of her unit, she is without helmet and appears unusually at ease in her compromised position. A nearby settler engages in friendly conversation with the disfavored. She peers down at him, listening with dutiful patience. The last lure hooked that trout just fine, but took the whole thing downstream with it when the knot gave out. I wrapped the line several times, just like you said. You aren't fibbing me, are you, Sophia? What stays your hand, Fate Binder? You must right this injustice immediately. What is this soldier's crime? Her? Oh, it's hardly my place to say. Far be it for me to posture like I'm a leader or lawbringer. The settler seems amused just to be consulted. Looks like you have company. Talk later, Sophia. The settler turns to you, wearing an uncertain smile. Good hunting, then. As the settler turns away, the bound soldier takes note of your approach. Telesofia, to find you in this cesspool of trespassers. He shakes his head. Worry not. We shall release you from this bondage at once. Wait. Who the... Barrack? Is that you? No, please. Leave me be. I'm sworn by duty to slay these fools, and swore by honor to see to their safety. It is easier to have no choice in the matter. You'd rather stay up there. Even if you set me free, I'm too hungry to fight. It's the only thing I'd have the mind to do. The time will come when I can free myself, and I'll grab the opportunity with both hands. She clenches her pale fingers into fists. I'd salute an officer of the court, but I'm somewhat indisposed at the moment. How do you end up on that column? A few span back, after Karen was finally declared rogue, the general wanted folks looking out for what made Karen lose his sanity, or his loyalty, depending on your outlook. My unit played escort for a team of Earthshakers as they retraced Karen's journey through the tiers. We headed to the Gates of Judgment and came across a crevice, which happened to be, well, she gestures upward with her head. A middle-aged woman walks by while clutching a woven basket, giving Telesofia a wave. The disfavored soldier nods in return. Good day, Yuchio? She watches the passing settler before returning her attention to you. You sure seem to be on good terms with the locals. They're rather lovely folk, despite all of them being Kyros mocking scum, deserving slow deaths. She attempts a limited expression of a shrug. Where was I? We paused to investigate, only to find this nest, this hive. Trespassers living with beasts as equals. All of it an abomination. There was no choice but to put them to the sword. We fought well. Our advance fell apart when that coward Argane threw up his arms and surrendered. He broke ranks and left us exposed. If I had been knocked senseless, I would have executed him myself. Woke up hoisted up on this wall, and I've been here ever since. How are you still alive? Graven Ash protects. The General's Aegis can sustain us through far more trying circumstances. She maneuvers her shoulders in a dim approximation of a salute. My wrists are mangled, and I've been tired and hungry for longer than I can remember, but I'm far from death's door. The settlers feed me just enough to keep going. She glances down at her dirt-encrusted armor. I'm sure I smell worse than a beastman dung heap, though. And why don't the settlers just execute you? They have, in a sense. The beastwoman leader of the local pack ordered that I be strung up until dead. Guess she didn't understand Ash's Aegis, so who's laughing now? Nobody wants to anger the resident Bane hunters, so the beasts must have their way. I've had plenty of time to get acquainted with the locals while I perish. It's almost a pity they're all doomed under Kyros. Well, I must be going. Yep, alright. Well, that's an interesting dilemma. The heavy odors of musk and urine loiter around these matted straw nests, making their proximity to the sleeping tents. To the west, all the more surprising. I'll talk to these merchants in just a moment. Yeah, an interesting dilemma to be bound by duty to slay people that you've grown to care about. So willingly staying strung up because she knows she's not going to die because she's under Graven Ash's Aegis. Alright, Gloom of Dawn. The rippling wall of muscle and fur sniffs the air at your approach.
Show some respect, whelp.
Kills and Shadows rears up at the beast. Unmoved by Kills and Shadows' display of aggression, the beast stares at you expectantly. What's the problem?
This beast does not lower haunches in our presence. Kills and Shadow should teach it proper etiquette.
Apologies. Did not intend offense, but I'll apologize for nothing. Apologies, but I'll apologize for nothing. A wicked scowl stretches across Kills and Shadow's face, but she says nothing. I remain silent. Do not look Kills and Shadow in the eye. Bow. Show respect. Or does Lily Worm need discipline? Have no time for foolishness. Be gone. Glaring at the beast with a low growl, Kills and Shadow begins to lurch forward, but thinks better of it. With a quiet sigh, she shakes her head. Tread carefully. Do not rescue if human falls into water. Hi, Merchant Nereid. Good day to you, Fatebinder. Let me be the first to tell you that all of my licenses are well in order, signed and sealed this very year. He swipes a layer of perspiration from his brow and chuckles nervously. No reason at all to ransack my cart or confiscate my goods. I trade in whatever I can get my hands on these days. Care to have a look? What can you tell me about Bastard's Wound? What is there to say? Living in the depths of the old walls ain't exactly a wise man's dream, but neither is living under the constant threat of raiders. At least down here, my back gets watched by beasts. Jaspo seems to have a pretty good handle on how things should be done. He's certainly more of a people person than Wagstaff, but that don't mean the Tidecaster's a bad person or nothing. Can't exactly stay in touch with the supply lines down here, but at least I have customers with nowhere else to go. Let's see what you have on offer. Just this way. Ooh, remarkable strength. I'll take that. Alright, Merchant Naxios. If you're wall smart, shop wall smart. Or wall smart. That's what I always say. He clears his throat. Also, this is wall smart. Welcome. I'm working on cries to drive custom. What did you think? Sounds good. You've almost got it. Thank you kindly, friend. They say fate miners don't have a sense of humor. I stock the staple foods and potions you expect from a Zur merchant at Haven value, all in the comfort of the old walls. What can you tell me about Bastard's Wound? It's fantastic, as long as the beasts keep the bane at bay. Wagstaff's lads and lasses have been making short work of them too. And he keeps the waters from well. Let's just say you want to get your water from him. Or Jaspos, I suppose. Nothing against him, but he's got a bit of the old northern blowhard to him. No offense to yourself, of course. Your blow seems entirely soft. That's not better, is it? I'll shut up now. Let's see what you have on offer. As you wish. We're the cheapest in the wound. Imperator's Old Walls Regalia. Scandalous, plus 20% affliction duration and immunity to Sundered. A popular legend of the Tears ridicules Imperator Thessanax, a likely mythic northern warlord who swore the invisible armor he'd purchased from an adventurous raider of the Old Walls could protect him from any and all harm. Those who suggested he had been swindled were publicly fed to sharks. While Thessanax may never existed, this armor certainly does. Probably. Does that mean the afflictions you apply last 20% longer, or... I'm interested in purchasing it, because this would be good for Lantry, I think. we hardly use this. Oh, it replaces the tunic. Oh, okay. Okay, I get it now. Invisible armor. Okay. Well, enjoy your new outfit, Landry. Assuming that that's a buff and not a debuff.
I've got it.
I really hope it means that his afflictions that he applies last 20% longer, not the other way around. Because I don't care about the sundered immunity. We hardly get sundered as far as I know. As far as I've seen.
Can't do that. Sorry, I can't.
It's not like he has a lot of afflictions to apply anyway. He has a knockdown. Well, no, he has a few because he has bleed.
Spotted something.
They handle themselves well enough, but it would be better to seal the breach in their defenses. Already spoken to them. Let's go over here and speak. We'll save Wagstaff for last. Let's try and wrap this exploration of this bastard's wound this episode. Intimate moniker. It's an interesting name. Welcome to our little refuge, Fatebinder. You're here to help us keep the wound clear of Bane? Intimate moniker picks at a splotch of dried blood on her greaves. She wears a patchwork armor of a Scarlet Fury. Are the Bane constantly showing up like that? Welcome to our headache. The way the Bane come and go, you think the teleporters were beaded curtains. Lucky for us, the beast seem to love killing Bane. They put in more hours on sentry duty than any human, and I welcome the extra sleep. What's through that portal? That goes deeper into the untamed old walls. We send patrols out to sharpen the beast's claws and lighten the numbers of Bane, but we haven't exactly mapped it. How do you get that name? Figured it was smarter to ask the voices for a name, rather than let my gang boss do it. I figured wrong. I could have been Craps for Days, or Bleeding Sores if I'd waited long enough. Even hindsight would be more appropriate. And what do you do here exactly? Whatever Wagstaff wants. Guess you can call me an apprentice. I can read, which is more than most can say. It's more subtle than the red work of the course, but I don't mind a change of pace. So the blue is to honor Wagstaff. Exactly. The guy iced half my gang with his spells, so now I fight for him. Those are the rules. In a twisted way, I think the voices would approve. Not that his approval is any safer than his wrath. Alright, well, I'll be going now.
On it.
Alright, let's go talk to Wagstaff. I wouldn't mind having Ebb along for the ride with... Oh, she moved over here.
I see the Tidecaster has made himself at home in these flooded halls.
Alright, nothing new to say. Arrange at angles that recall the sigil of Gravelight. These crystals shimmer with the collected glow of what little radiance from Tyrannus' grave filters into these depths. A bearded, weathered figure stands by the pool's edge, eyes closed in concentration. His face, uncharitably weathered from years of sun and wind, is a collection of deep, intertwining creases, wreathed by a brittle-looking gray mane. More disapproving eye snaps open as you approach. I hear you've already spoken with our other advocate, Jaspos, regarding the legality of this place. I wish you had spoken with me first. If Jaspos convinced you to show us mercy, then perhaps I owe him a day without denigrating comments. Half day, maybe. Thank you, Fatebinder. I knew the day would come when we'd be discovered, and I imagined a much bloodier scenario. In this regard, I'm happy to be made a fool. Life in the wound isn't easy. We always assumed outsiders will bring death, not help. Your leniency is the sort of surprise we needed in these difficult times. Though I'd never have guessed this, your arrival may be the sign of good things to come. Let me guess, you need my help. We normally avoid contact with the outside, for fear of trouble following us back home. With my duties here, leaving is out of the question. And yet, there are matters beyond these walls in need of a solution. And since I cannot leave this place to handle my own affairs, perhaps I can retain your services. Depends on what you have in mind. There's an old rival of mine still out there, a sage named Foibe. He twists the rope on the end of his belt, grimacing. Yes, we're from rival schools. No, this isn't just a case of an unsettled score. I'd live and let live, but she poses an actual threat to the wound. She had knowledge of my plans to journey north to trace Karen's path in these mountains, which may expose us. She could bring a slew of homeless sages here, probably followed by a gaggle of spies. It's not worth the risk. She needs to die. His tone is matter of fact, almost casual. The problem is finding her. We had a mutual contact, Melita, who used to spend this time of year in Lethian's Crossing. If the two are still in touch, she'll be able to point you in the right direction. All of Bastard's wound would be in your debt, most of all me. Can I trust in your help? How do you know her? Over a decade ago, the School of Tides and the School of Ink and Quill tried, yet again, to discuss peace. She represented her school. I was forced to represent our end of this fruitless mediation. It was all a farce to get to know a few of us, figure out who should be spied upon. Several span later, some of my work was discovered by the sages. Word thieves, every last one of them. Is this sage really such a threat? She's a risk to everyone living here. The woman hates me. Having dealings with her in the past was a mistake. I'd be darned if I let that error ruin all that we've built here. Now that her school is in ruins, she'll view my accomplishments here as research to be appropriated. And while she's at it, she'll engineer a catastrophe for the wound just to spite me. So yes, Fatebinder, I'm sure. I'll find her. Thank you. This matter's haunted me for quite a while. If my stupidity caused the wound to be uncovered, best not to think of it. You've been unlike other servants of Kyros I've encountered. We're indebted to your patience and reason. One more thing, Fatebinder. If you do kill her, be sure to gather her belongings. Very important. That's the only way I can verify that you found the right sage. It would also... His words falter as he chokes up with a halting smile. It would also mean a great deal to see my old scrolls back, on the off chance she still carries them. It is a petty and vain request, but if you've been robbed before, you probably know the feeling. What else do you want of me? What do you do here as one of the leaders? He shakes his head. I'm the only true leader, as I said before, but I won't belabor the point. He clears his throat. 3 years ago, I stumbled across these old walls, and very quickly found I wasn't alone. A clutch of hungry and sick tearsmen had stumbled upon this enclave as well. I'd come here to escape Kyros' forces, but I'm nothing if not driven by noblesse oblige. I decided I'd weigh anchor for a bit and help out. His staff dips in the pool at his feet, sending ripples across its surface. Water was both the problem and the solution. These refugees were surrounded by it, but couldn't drink it without picking up whatever old walls-induced disease lived within it. Withering rot, we call it. And what's wrong with the water down here? The streams that run through these old walls have something foul about them. Some suggest the Bane do their business upstream, and that taints the water. I suspect the problem is less scatological in origin, but likely mystical all the same. Whatever it is, it leads to fever, seizures, eventually death. I've been able to concoct a remedy, if administered in time, and I can mix this solution with water to make it drinkable. But untreated, the water here is a death sentence. These people accepted your leadership willingly. Did I knock them around first? Is that what you were asking? No. They were survivors of some battle where Cairn brought a keep down on their heads, and opened a route to this enclave in the process. They were starving, lost, terrified of the Bane. They came to me for help, since my magic could keep them safe. Times sure have changed, folks begging a Tidecaster to save them and all. What happens to those with withering rot? You waste away in agonizing fashion. That's the short of it. The water here slakes thirst for a moment. Those poisoned reported feeling dry no matter how they drink. They'd use the bathroom out more than you could put in, while being desperately thirsty all the time. Your skin shrivels and cracks. Eventually you die. A pathetic, desiccated husk of a person. That's what I found when I first happened upon the wound. A lot of scared, dying folks that weren't long for this world. Nobody was going to right that ship except me, so I stayed, and they lived. Let him continue. To a Tidecaster, these are trivial matters. As long as I'm here, making a solution to purify the water is a simple matter. I make life here possible. It's a difficult burden, but I'm honored my talents are put to good use. Tell me about the Tidecasters. We'll come back with Ebb and have this conversation again, just to see what she interjects with. Since we have to leave Bastard's Wound to do quests anyway, we'll grab Ebb and Sierra and come back, deal with their interactions, then we'll go back out and trade them back out for, I guess, Kills in Shadow and Barrick. Are we the students of Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides? She's one of the founding pioneers of the Tiers, and her school has been the longest running institution of learning in the peninsula. Don't listen to what the sages say. Why didn't you leave with the others? I was one of the few to stay, and why not? This is my home. I don't care about Kyros' war or the slaughter of sport of these Archons. I also wasn't about to sail west to die of starvation on the high seas. The Promised Lands are a lie. The ocean goes straight onward, or maybe you fall off the edge, or wrap around to the east coast of Taratus and land right in Kyros' lap. If I'm to die, let it happen in my father's coast, my mother's land. What have you been doing since the school's departure? I spent the first few span dealing with some unfinished business. A half-done sages has wronged some friends of mine, and I'll admit, vengeance occupied me for a time. When Kyros' forces came, I decided to stay far from the beaten path. I set out to the mountains to find privacy. This place was serendipity, writ large. When others stumbled upon this place, it somehow shifted from hovel to home. I did not expect or ask for the responsibility for carrying these people, but now that I wear it, the mantle is comforting. What did you do in the school before the war? Provost of Antiquities was the official title. My life's work was a curation of the school's past. The relics, the sermons of Occulted Jade, the life stories of Tidecasters, elders past. That sort of work. A fellow historian. I didn't realize the Tidecasters gave a care to the historical record. I wonder how your notes would compare to the Chronicles of the Sages. I'm sure I could fill in countless gaps in your accounting. The Tidecaster glares at Lantry with contempt. Ah yes, but the historical record note that Lantry takes the hint. Coughing nervously, the sage takes several steps back and falls silent. My personal interest has always been the fluid magics of our school. Most of the school embraces the mighty power of Gravelight. I almost can't blame them. For me, water, mist, ice, and fog have always been more immediate, more real, more worthy of understanding. Why didn't the Tidecasters stay and fight Kyros? If I may be so bold as to answer your question with a question. Why do you think it was? Not many folks seem to know the truth, so I'm curious what one of Kyros' soldiers believes happened. I like 2 and also like 4. I assume they didn't want to die and felt their chances were better on the open seas, given the school's skill set. You aren't that far from the truth, at least for many of the Tidecasters. The high seas are truly home. For many, the danger of the seas was a lesser worry than war with Kyros. The truth is, our Archon lacked the will to resist. Scores of Tidecasters craved war, but lost heart at the notion of facing the enemy without Occulted Jade leading the charge. Enough. I don't wish to revel in the cowardice of the Tidecasters. I made my decision to stay. I'm not pretending I'm some brave hero, but at least I'm trying to hold it onto some little port in the storm. Let me ask about something else. The old man clears his throat and taps his staff against the floor. How do you purify the water? It's impossible to convey the intricacies, but suffice it to say that I must infuse water with gravelight energy. This, combined with trace amounts of alcohol and beastmen blood, counteracts the mortifying effects of the old wall's water. I see that look in your eye. Worry not. The beastmen willingly give these vital fluids when they can. It's a tiring process, but it produces clean and restorative water. Jasper's product is an amateur's imitation. Will never sustain this place in the long run. That's why I've taken on Insipid Moniker as my apprentice, to safeguard this process. Unlike most, she knows just when to stay out of my way. And what should I know about Jaspos? His eyes glaze over at the mention of his rival's name. Ugh. If only that rock pounder would just shut up. He loves the sound of his own voice. He grips the roping on his waist, squeezing it in a clenched fist. Unfortunately, his forge is in the upper level, so his soliloquies flow down here to ensure my misery. This place has better acoustics than the Academy of Tides. Lucky me. He thinks because he can cleanse the water, not as well as I do, mind you, that he can pontificate at all hours of the day. I nearly drowned myself once rather than listen to one of his tirades, you know. But I knew the moment my body was discovered, he'd be raining another righteous speech about cowardice down upon my corpse. That wouldn't do. Look, I'll say it plain. Jaspos has a big mouth, and he talks incessantly about transforming Bastard's wound into something great. But the truth is that he's just out for himself. He slams his staff into the ground, mouth quivering as he speaks. I built this place from nothing. He thinks he can come in and claim it when the hard work has already been done. Not on my watch. I heard a beast woman here once held sway. He cocks an eyebrow. Ah, Reef Talon. Curious case, that one. She pawed her way into these caves a year ago with her cubs. A vicious fighter for certain. The bane of the bane, I like to say. She took charge of the tribe, but had a curious way about her. The most fascinating beast I'd ever met. Oddly pensive, strangely polite, prone to bathing. Speaks nonsense. Cowed and submissive by the sound of it. This Reef Talon sounds like mewling bulwark, not proper alpha. Things got really unusual when, after a bloody dust-up with the Bane, Reef Talon healed some other members of the patrol with her touch. I can't say heal with a straight face. Those who had her wounds tended by Reef Talon felt spectacular for a few days, but by week's end, a whole host of new maladies overtook them. Reef Talon was a mystic. She claims she wasn't. I've never known a beast to downplay her strengths. But as sure as water is wet, she could bend wounds with a mere touch, so she must have had some training. Having seen what her healing did, hindsight tells me why she would be hesitant to discuss her mystic training. Perhaps trained by a fool for a mystic. Why else would Beastwoman hide such strengths? A true mystic wears power proudly, does not viper slither in obsequiousness. What sort of problems happen to those who were healed? It started subtle, really. Folks treated by Reef Talon just slept a little less each night. At first, claiming they felt too hale and hearty to sit in bed. Later, they'd be exhausted from days spent waking, yet unable to sleep. The old Tidecaster shifts his weight with a sigh. And after days of being sleepless, other things would start to go. Tempers, memories. Worst of all, a few who could work sigils lost the talent. Imagine spending an afternoon listening to Jaspos droning on about the virtues of pulverizing stone. You'd be frustrated and exhausted, somewhat murderous in intent, but for some reason you can't sleep. Night turns to day, which turns to night. We took to calling those affected the sleepless, and warned others of what became of those cured by Reef Talon. What became of Reef Talon? A few span back, a patrol of disfavored were in the mountains, searching areas struck by Karen's magic, so they said. Well, they stumbled on our refuge, and being disfavored, were shocked and appalled not just by our squatting in the old walls, but by the beastmen living with us. A few even referred to Reef Talon during the parley, and seeing humans look up to a beast woman was rather appalling to those iron thugs. The meeting quickly turned violent. Man leads beast, not the other way around. Such things should not require an explanation. The beasts are strong and should lead humans. Agreed. This is not the usual way of this. We bested the disfavored, but Reef Talon fled during the altercation. I guess a combination of guilt from warping her fellows with magic, and the feeling of shame that her presence roused the disfavored to attack us. I have no proof, but I think Reef Talon fled to save us from her. There's plenty of folks who hate her, but I for one don't think her actions were ever malicious. Protecting this place is all she cares about, as she probably realized she had to go to save us all. Regardless of her specific motivation, I'm certain she fled deeper into the old walls, not topside. Someone claims she dove into the water, another claims she accessed the teleporter. Either way, she hasn't been into the village since the disfavored arrival. If anyone can survive the depths of the old walls alone, it's Reef Talon. That said, she's been gone a while now, and I'm not sure I'd wager money on her survival to date. Now, what happened to the Sleepless? When Reef Talon fled, almost all the Sleepless went with her. Whether they chased her out of anger or fear of being deserted, I don't know. You might find a few here in the refuge, but most of them have taken their chances in the depths of the old walls. Isley, one whose life is already marred by the tragedy of wedlock to Jaspos, was the last person healed by Reef Talon. She's still cogent. Who knows how long that'll last. Poor woman. So in dialogue, her name is spelled with an EY, but her actual name, when you go and talk to her, is spelled with just a Y. Little inconsistency. Because, was it Mel? The sage we spoke to when we first got here also spelled it with an EY. The Sleepless grow more detached from reason with each day spent waking. I half imagine most went into the old walls to find death at the talons of the Bane. If I lost the ability to rest, if my magic was taken from me, I'd probably do the same. Well, that's all for now. Good. He closes his eyes and returns to his recitation. Alright, well that was a mouthful. I believe we cleared out this whole place. We have 2 quests outside of Bastard's Wound. I know we can go up to the, I guess, the farms. But we're not going to do that yet. Instead, we're going to leave because we have 2 quests in Lethian's Crossing. We also have that quest. Wait, this guy gave me a quest to find his tools, didn't he? In Lethian's Crossing. I don't see that quest here anymore. Wonder what happened to it. Maybe it wasn't an official quest, maybe it was just like a side thing. I don't remember who. Regardless, we need to talk to Lahara, who is the Forge Bound in Lethian's Crossing. Unless I'm just not seeing it, but I'm pretty sure I just don't. It's not here. Okay. Well, I guess I'll figure that out next time.
I got it.
Either way, I'm going to call the episode here. Next time we will go to Lethian's Crossing, try and deal with both of those quests if we can. Again, not sure what happened to Jaspis' quest there. But we'll figure it out. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.